Hello and happy Friday, folks. We're back at it again. Just needed to go ahead and make a short disclaimer. We're actually in not a tornado, but a thunderstorm warning right now. And if we get cut off or if you hear sirens and see us scramble, we will try and pick it up later or have our guests back on. Just wanted to go ahead and welcome everybody aboard. So today we're going to be talking with Melody Ray and Kimberly Remsen about being living historians and reenacting as women. I do have my co-host on with me tonight. How are you doing, Adrian?
Well, I'm doing great, CR, and I'm super excited about having both Kim and Melody on to talk about how they got into this. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's so much history that's amazing that, you know, even you and I were talking earlier, and I'm like, what? I didn't know that. So it's pretty cool.
Well, let's go ahead and bring them on. I'm going to bring Melody on first, and you can talk to her a little bit while I bring Kim on.
Hi, Melody.
Hi, Melody. How you doing?
Good. What's new? What can I do you for?
Hey, Melody, where are you signing in from?
I live in Minneapolis, but I am currently not home right now, so I'm signing in from St. Paul, Minnesota.
Oh, cool.
Nice. I will go ahead and bring Kim on. Let's see.
And I think Kim is coming on by voice.
Hello, Kim. How are we tonight? Kim, are you there? I think we lost Kim. I will try and get her back.
Okay, that sounds good. Do you want me to start with Melody?
Yeah, go right ahead. I'll try and get Kim on here.
So, Melody, what I'm trying to know is, like, how did you get interested?
Hi, Kim. How you doing? Give me one.
Hi, Kim.
Doing good. You there?
You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello?
Well, she's not able to hear you.
Yeah.
Hello?
Shoot, I don't know what's going on.
It's always something technical.
You guys hear me still?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. We will probably have to go without Kim. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, or maybe you could try again. Can you call her on your cell or text her?
Yeah, I'll try her again.
Because she may be even, this is not good English. She was maybe even to talk on your cell phone and you could put her
Kim,
by the mic.
There?
Hello?
Yeah, you there?
Hello?
Yeah, she can't hear you. So call her on your cell.
Well, it is through my cell, so we will just have to unfortunately go without her. So I will send her a message. If you want to start and talk with Melody about a couple of things, I'm here, but I'll just send him a message.
Melody, how did you get interested in reenacting as a living historian? And you know, it's not just one association, but you have the Soviet Rifles Division you've been in, the Desert Storm as British.
Yep.
Vietnam, which that blows my mind because I didn't even know that people were reenacting Vietnam groups.
Oh, I know.
And French, my favorite that you're in is the French Resistance.
Oh yeah, that's a favorite impression of mine. That was the first reenactment I ever did.
And that was at Travis's place at Big Lake, right?
Yes, it was.
I think that was one of the first places. Yeah, that was the first place I reenacted because when I
didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I switched over from Civil War and went to German. And it was funny because I tried it and I'm like, Mom, I found a group. I'm doing this. She goes, what is it? I'm like, German? She goes, I don't think so. Your great uncle died on the beaches of Normandy. And I'm like,
Yeah,
airborne
I don't know.
trooper?
Yeah. I just like, I was like, you have to be on the right side. And but I do have an appreciation for those people who reenact on either side. But I was like, nope, you're not gonna be on the German side.
Kim, are you there? Not working either.
I told her she could try calling me as well.
Yeah. Yeah, if you, yeah, it's not working. Darn. All right. Well, yeah. So how did you get started in reenacting?
I actually started out as a reenacting girlfriend, so I'd gone there with my partner at the time. It wasn't that I necessarily wanted to come with, but I put a lot of research and a lot of time and a lot of effort. I know, being like noobs, having to sleep outside, it doesn't sound fun. But I was kind of brought along, and I put a lot of time and effort into it, and I ended up really, really, really enjoying it. And so I've been reenacting for probably since about 2018, 2019.
Okay.
And it's been kind of super consistent ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was your first event? Well, you said at Travis's at Big Lake there. So
yeah, it was depicting the. Oh man, that was such a long time ago. It was depicting the recapture of a small French village. So on our side, we had like Brits, French partisans, few German guys coming up against us, a few Americans. It was fun. It was a good time.
I'd like to shout out a hello to Ryan Jones, who's listening, and he has the freaking awesome paranormal show. So
yes,
it's nice to have him on here. He helped us get started. So, what was the first group again that you went into?
I believe I was kind of dragged along as a small group of French partisans, up against the local reenacting group up in Big Lake, which is the First SS, which basically has like, they own the land that is like the biggest reenacting spot and like airsoft spot in Minnesota. So.
Well, yeah, for tacticals.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you were, did you already know a lot about the history of the French resistance, or did you like do more research? How did you approach that?
I had actually been interested in like the Free French for a really long time, but starting to go into research and learning how much depth there is down to like the stitches like in your clothing, and about the history, about tactics. It was kind of a rabbit hole, like when you're laying up at night for too long reading a Wikipedia page, like.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's really easy to be sucked in.
People don't understand the amount of prep that goes in for just 2 days.
Oh, absolutely. Even down to like, you gotta leave your uniform outside in the freaking rain all night and like,
right,
clean your guns, all that fun stuff.
Well, and you can always tell a FNG when they show up because it's clean, crisp, no dirt on it, fresh out of the package.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure they haven't been properly harassed yet either, right?
That is definitely a thing, a lot more than you realize. Yeah.
I know you guys have fun with this because I've seen you out at Dakota City reenacting.
Yeah.
And you really are like an awesome little family or team that has a lot of fun doing the reenactments. But I was also impressed with just being there and visually seeing everybody in uniform, seeing how serious people take it, how well that they're acting. And I watched the kids. That was a thing that really struck me, as there were these little kids, and they were from, from toddlers to probably fourth graders, but they were all learning. This they would never have an opportunity to see without reenactors. And it's so much history. I feel like with my parents going and the World War II, the greatest generation,
Mhm.
I just feel like what you're doing, whether it's your Desert Storm Group or your Soviet Rifles Division, is giving us a slice of pictures and history that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Something CR told me today, because I'm like, I think I was like, well, women weren't really like combatant. And he said, oh, in the Soviet Rifles Division or Soviet Division, they were.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Usually
Mhm.
not necessarily infantry as I do, even though like there were quite a few like women that were on like the front lines, usually as like machine gunners or like the Night Witches, which was like an ultimately famous Soviet aerial squad, or even as snipers. There were a ton of Soviet female
And
snipers.
I'm writing that one down, the Night Witches. That sounds like good
Yep.
reading. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And a lot of snipers too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, a lot.
Oh, I do hear that women are good shots.
It's the counterbalance. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, you know what? There's still timeout chairs somewhere in this house. So
Wow.
yeah, well, that is amazing. The strength that women had during, whether they were in the troops or not, just during the war where they had to go to work in the factories as well. So you went into the French resistance kind of first, right? And
Yes.
then did you see like these other groups and you're like, oh, that looks interesting? Or how did you get so many groups? I'm really impressed with that.
I really enjoyed like kind of the mock combat. My first event was a tactical, which means you go out and you actually like do combat scenarios, and I loved it. I wanted to do more, so I asked my partner at the time, like, where can I be where I can shoot at you guys? And the 416th Soviet Rifles was a local group that was actually pretty close to me at the time, and they said, welcome aboard. Yeah.
That's cool.
And the nice thing about the Soviet kit is it's relatively inexpensive to get started with.
To perfect, oh man.
As opposed to going, 101st Airborne right off the bat. That was...
Oh, God, I couldn't imagine.
That was hurt, but been there, done that, got the Class A's. So after the FFI, what did you go into? Because I think if I remember, the gentleman you were with at the time was First SS, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
But I really, not to say that female medical personnel aren't like, oh, absolutely incredible, absolute heroes, especially when it comes to like the warfare in general. I know nothing about medicine, so I didn't really find interest in that. Like I said, I really wanted to be something where I could really, really be out in the field. And yeah, that's kind of where I landed with the 416th.
Yeah, I would think that there would be an element of action and fun in that reenactment for sure.
I remember bringing home my first gun before I even had my entire kit finished, and my mother said, like, yeah, no. I was still living at home at the time. She's like, yeah, no, get this out of here.
Yeah, mama bears do stuff like that. Yeah.
Right.
So I love this picture of you,
Thank
Melody.
you.
What tell me about that? I mean, this is such a classic
I
photo.
can tell you where that is from here.
Yeah, this is at a reenactment that's unfortunately no longer happening
Yep.
at Dundas, Minnesota, where it's a public event where we both have displays, we camp out, let people kind of walk around the grounds, and then we do mock battles for like bystanders and the public in general.
Yeah, that was for the what 6 years it was going there. It was amazing.
It was fun. There was
Yeah.
it's timeline events. You have reenactors from like all over history. I think there was like the Scottish Guard there and like Civil War guys and a few East Germans even, which is something that you don't see every day.
Yeah, even had a couple of pajama rangers there too.
Oh yeah.
Okay, are we going to get in trouble with that comment? What's a pajama ranger?
Well, I mean, NVA,
Yep.
North Vietnamese. They always it looked like they were in black pajamas. So
Oh, because of their cultural dress.
Yeah.
So what unit were you in here?
The 416th.
The 416th. Okay.
Yes.
So
and that was with John Borum, right?
Yep, that's right.
So these uniforms, when I look at them, I look at so many of the reenactors and it looks like heavy wool.
The Soviet uniforms are a kind of cotton twill kind of a situation. The thing that goes around right here that converts into a cape for the rain is like, it's kind of like a heavier canvas. The Soviet uniforms aren't really that heavy, surprisingly. Like you'd think they would be, but
they look like it, don't they?
They were more for function than form.
Mm-hmm.
And for ease of cost too, as you can imagine, a country that had just been Operation Barbarossa.
Tell me more about that, because I'm not good at this history.
Oh yeah, Operation Barbarossa was Hitler's full frontal assault onto Russian territory.
Okay. So where he was kind of repeating history there.
Yep.
Moving his troops into Russia during the winter? Or he was
I don't remember the date off the top of my head. I apologize.
That's okay.
I think she's thinking more of the Finnish War, the Winter War.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, I mean, Hitler did it first, ally with the Soviets.
Yep.
And they would have been an unstoppable force if they did, but he decided to renege on his contract.
When you were in this event, was this a day event? Because some events are overnight, right? Or
this was an event where during the day we would be open to the public and we would camp out at night.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so this was a weekend long. So we would normally take Friday off of work and show up probably. I usually showed up 9:30, 10 o'clock and set up. And then, people would come in after work at about 4 or 5 o'clock and set up their stuff. And we would be on site till maybe noon, 1:30 on a Sunday afternoon and break down and weekend warrior thing.
Mm-hmm. What about food? Did you reenact some of the foods they have like during the day, or was that kind of a separate?
Oh, absolutely. Usually you can't get your hands on well-made like MREs, so you kind of improvise. Like you would like make the boxes that like the German like emergency rations came in and like throw together a few things that look similar. What I usually would do is you have your big doing Russian, like I would just have like my big steel pot and like a big jar of like buckwheat groats and a few sausages or like some cheese that you can bring with you. Cans of food.
I remember at Rockford we put an impromptu borscht together. That was fun.
That was good. I remember that was Yuri that did that. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Everything tastes so much better when you're like out doing stuff all day.
It does.
I suppose it's like camping, and well, you guys had to have been exhausted by the end of it because you were doing mock battles, and I mean, it had to be physically active.
Well, and what a lot of people don't see is, they come to events and they see us just sitting in camp. Well,
Honestly, yeah.
What you don't see is you don't see the Friday night preparations where we all get done in camp and then they form us up and we go do exercises for a couple hours.
Sometimes,
or the exercises that you do in the morning before formation.
You also don't see the Saturday night parties.
Shh, quiet.
Yeah, it seems to me there was a World War II group that could get a little out of hand at Dakota City at times.
12th SS calling you out.
Yeah. So, what was like one of the main questions that people would ask you, or even kids might ask you? Were they able to come up to you, I guess, when you were reenacting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. Probably. I'm not gonna lie. Why is there a spoon in your boot? Is that a real fire? I don't.
Why is there a spoon in your boot?
That's just where you kept your spoon.
No kidding. Didn't that hurt? You hurt your foot?
No. You got the top sticking out. It just looks
okay.
Cool.
I gotcha.
I don't usually get asked many different questions from a lot of the guys, if I'm being completely honest. Sometimes you just get like little girls or like people just like really curious, like, why are you here? How are you out here with like your shovel, like bashing stuff into the ground? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Is this all for show, or is this all real stuff? My biggest thing is they look at the rifles and they're like, is this real?
Is the real gun? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Can I touch it?
Just keep moving. So you did the Soviet. So where did you go after that? What was your next progression?
My next progression would have been, I did Soviet for a very, very long time, and then I started doing the 25th ID Wolfhounds under Matthew Hatfield, who I call him Papa. He's kind of like a dad to me. He's great. I ended up being, like I said, I don't really necessarily like doing nurse impressions. So I wanted to be out in the field. I decided that I would do a war correspondent.
Okay.
Which is kind of my baby right now. Ever since I've been doing that, it's my absolute favorite thing. I love doing it. I love the era.
So a lot better than being a nurse or a donut dolly.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It does. A nurse or a donut dolly don't really suit me. I'm trying to work on getting a nurse impression together right now because that is technically my rank is Lieutenant U.S. Army nurse in that unit. But
so
I need to work on that a little bit.
Kind of like a China Beach scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this your war correspondent's outfit and your camera?
Yep.
Like a journalist.
Yep, that is a 1968 Nikon F, which was the most commonly used camera by war correspondents in the field.
Oh, wow.
This was actually at a training event that we had a couple weeks ago, where we went to an actual Vietnam Army training base down in Indiana, and we had a training event, and that was a lot of fun to like document.
Nice.
One of the first war correspondents started. Female war correspondent Sticky Chappell started off by documenting training before units would ship off.
So as far as this right here, I mean, in this picture, you must be a little bit of a Trekkie because I can tell who you're drawing there. Why don't you tell us about that?
Actually, yeah, I have a friend that makes how do I explain this? A 1968 based fanzine off of Star Trek, because that's when Star Trek, like the fan population, started really popping off.
Okay.
Based in the based in the style of like a 1968 one. It's called The Tricorder by Gideon Marcus. Definitely check him out.
Cool. So as far as the Vietnam, I know there's a lot of people out there that think it's kind of a touchy subject because it's still fresh in some people's minds. I know there's a lot of guys when they came home, they didn't get treated well.
Right.
And that's unfortunate. But so doing Vietnam, are you guys just doing like a in-camp impression, or are you guys out there doing firefights?
I did have one firefight event that was pretty fun. It was actually pretty realistic. Oh man, during that reenactment, it was so miserable. It rained all night. I was sleeping in a hole.
Oh.
It felt
We
so real. It was so
could have
good.
thrown some leeches in there and
Right.
Yeah, right.
big bugs to make it more realistic. But yeah, it would be miserable.
But still a lot of fun. Still a great time. Mostly public events though.
Right.
Our big one is down in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
Where we go to the VA grounds down there, and we set
nice.
up a display for the veterans, which is also a timeline event.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really had anything as far as controversy goes. As far as Vietnam reenacting, a lot of veterans love us. Our
Right.
unit commander is a veteran. He makes sure that we're up to par, that we're disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that a lot of people don't understand is they think that we're just coming in and we're throwing, glory hogging and throwing the uniform on it. And it's not that way. I know when I was Fox Company 101st, anytime you had part of that uniform on, you were clean shaven, you were military bearings, yes sir, no sir, and you were honoring them by having a uniform on.
Mm-hmm.
It also really depends on the unit that you join as well.
Right.
Is this your jungle? Are these jungle boots and your
Yes.
Vietnam?
Yep.
Okay. Is that a gun that they used at that time?
Yep, that's the 50. The 50 cal.
50 cal.
Ma deuce.
That must weigh a lot.
I didn't have to carry it around, thankfully.
I think, don't quote me, but I think that it's probably around 100 pounds, if not more.
By the look on the guy's face that was carrying it, yeah, probably.
Yeah, and then that trunnion is probably another good, every bit of 75 pounds.
We had a lot of really young dudes that were hauling that thing around, so
they're gonna hate that.
Well, that's what they had to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Melody, do you pick a specific character in history ever, or how does that work?
No, I try to be like the most unrecognizable random like soldier that you can like pick out of like a battlefield or like out of a camp or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's just like the best portrayal. I try not to be too flashy. I know people that do. I know a young lady that does Svetlana Alexievich, who was a World War II Russian sniper.
Oh my gosh.
But me, I just try to be like your average, ordinary Joe.
Right.
I feel like that's the best way to like portray things.
Mm-hmm. And I've done that. I've done the first person as well. I did 10 years in the 5th Minnesota Company C doing Civil War. And I actually portrayed one of my ancestors that was actually in the 3rd Minnesota.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, there's a lot of research that goes into that. And I tell you, if you want to do first person correctly, you better do your research.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because it's only going to take that one person to come out of the weeds and go, I know exactly who you're portraying and you're doing it wrong.
Well, it's all about honor. It's all about honoring the men and women of our military forces. And as I said initially, the history is what is so fabulous when you get a visual. You get the visual and you get, I can remember being at Dakota City when they had the World War II tanks come through the street. And so I've never seen a tank, and I was sending, I was 25 feet from a tank rolling down the dirt road. And it was just like, oh my gosh,
It's all cool and fun until they say, "Hey, you can ride up on here. You just got to get up here." And I
Right,
don't know. I don't know about you, Mel, but so I was in my paratrooper gear, and those jump boots are slick bottom. I had the heck of a time trying to get up on that thing.
Even like the hobnails, you're just slipping and sliding around.
Yeah, but it was fun. Once you're up there, it's a fun little ride.
A really cool ride that I've been able to take. I don't know the unit's actual like division, or if they have like a thing, or if they're just like the group of guys, but I know they're affiliated with like the Commemorative Air Force a little bit, because that's where we landed. I've done like helicopter rides and stuff in like the Huey.
The group out of what is it, Richmond?
Yep.
Yeah. There's a group of guys out of Richmond, Wisconsin that have a old UH-1 Bell Iroquois, and they actually flew it into Dundas. That was cool. I was part of the security squad for that morning, and basically what they did is the Vietnam guys woke up at like 0700, and they all jumped in a guy's truck and they drove down to the local municipal airport, and they met the chopper there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They jumped on, they flew in, and they did a combat offload. So basically what they do is they come in treetop, they fly over their landing zone. The pilot will check out, see if it's a hot LZ or not. They'll fly around, they'll pick out where they're going to touch down. They come in, do a combat offload, which they're a foot to 2 foot off the ground. Everybody throws their stuff out, they jump out, they pull security. The bird lifts back up, does another circle, and comes down and lands. And that was
it's cool. I've done one of the combat landings with those guys. It was really cool. They made that was probably the only time I've ever fielded as a man.
Okay.
So they had me strapped up with a big chain of ammo in the M60, and I was lugging that thing around. It was really cool.
Oh my God.
It was awesome. I couldn't find the pic. I did want to put that in, but I couldn't find the picture for it. I think it's on my Instagram or something though.
Yeah, and when I said treetop level, I ain't kidding. I mean, it felt like you could reach up and touch the bottom of that Huey.
Those pilots were pretty amazing.
Amazing.
Doc Z worked with some when he was firefighting, and a lot of them were pilots that had flown in Vietnam.
Yep.
Dropping off the firefighters.
Well, and he was even telling me they were on base one day, and the pilot and co-pilot came in. Hey, you guys doing anything? They're like, nope. Like, you want to go have fun? Yeah. What are we doing? He goes, we got to go research our the, what do they call it? The auto rotate.
Oh,
and they don't do that anymore. So when they research auto rotate now, it's just the pilots. But they were like, yeah, we'll go hang out. So they get in and they did an actual auto rotate with a bunch of guys.
Oh, that's so cool.
So we're just about a little over half hour here.
Oh wow, that went by fast.
Yeah, well, why don't we go ahead and talk about some of the experiences that we've had in some of the events?
Oh yeah.
I think,
you found the picture.
Yes. So that.
Oh, that was rough. That was one of my first reenactments.
Yep.
I look like a complete farb. Like, oh man. And God, my boots were way too small for me, so they just ate my feet up.
Yeah.
All the gear that I have on there was, well, I bought that gear, but the boots were loaner at the time. But I mean, sun's out, guns out. So
you know it.
That had to be hot. I mean, we're talking August.
Oh yeah, that was. Well, we had the red flag fire warnings that weekend.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Do you remember the battlefield catching on fire twice?
What? No, I actually don't.
So I think it was Saturday morning, the Saturday morning battle. There were a couple of shell casings that caught the the field on fire.
Oh my
And it
god.
was funny because all of a sudden guys stop fighting and they go for their
Oh,
shovels
you
and
know,
they start
you know
cutting
what? I
fire
do
line.
remember that. Uh-huh.
So you got
I remember hearing the
guys
story of
cutting
it. I don't
fire
think I saw
line
it
under
myself.
fire.
Well, yeah, I guess that they had some extra firefighters there on the
Right.
end.
And then I think it was the afternoon. Yeah, because Andrew Grindle, right?
No.
He's with the the engineers. If you were walking in, like if you came walking into the woods from the parking lot, they were the American group that was directly off to the right.
Oh, sure. Okay, yeah.
He went by Doc Grindle. Well, they're the guys that had the M1 Abrams, the Panther.
Okay, yeah.
They started their they started their sandbags on fire with a 30 cal coax.
Oh,
It
wow.
was just the thing about the
I'm
sandbag,
exasperated, but I'm also completely not surprised.
right? So
Yeah.
the sandbags we don't fill with real sand; they're filled with sawdust, just to give the illusion. Well, what they used to do for extra protection is they would pile up sandbags, real sandbags, around the bow of the tank because the armor on the Shermans up front really wasn't that much. Well, they had a sandbag that got a little too close to the 30 cal coax machine gun and started a fire. So one of the road guards saw it first. So,
Wow.
but what do you remember most of this picture, Mel? I think it was either afternoon. Well, I think it was afternoon because I got
Yeah.
some tea going there.
It didn't take me very long. It didn't take those boots very long to chew up my feet, but yeah,
Right.
I remember being dragged down to the US medical tent with my feet just killing me. Like I had to be like supported and like dragged down there cuz
Yep.
it was like that bad. And then dragged back to camp and then sitting there, feet put up on the log, getting patched up.
Yep. And a lot of people don't know is I was medic for the group that weekend.
Yeah, I had to ask you for help.
Yeah. So I actually took her down to the 10th Mountain medical guys that I know that I've done scenarios with, and a lot of things that a lot of people don't know about the guys who play the medics is we either have first aid training or we are EMTs, or some guys are doctors, some guys are veterinarians, or we have, we've read books. So I do usually bring a real world kit with me just for cuts and scrapes and boo-boos. But they do actually have EMTs on site.
That's
oh yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm.
And of
I don't
course,
know.
no live rounds, but you still have
No.
danger in
Oh, of
the
course.
fact, that there is well, I know like Civil War, for example, those blanks that they even had in the cannon could knock somebody's hearing out if they weren't careful. And
We had that happen at Boscobel. There was a company that attached to our left flank at the last minute, and we were firing by file, which is, or no, we were firing by rank, which is front and rear. And bunch of new guys didn't know what they were doing. The guy in the rear rank triple charged because it wouldn't go off. He didn't look at the end of the barrel. And the guy in the front rank was too close to the muzzle of the muzzle loader, and he lost permanently 6% of his hearing.
oh no.
Oh man.
So yeah, I mean, and why don't we talk about our safety briefs there for a minute, Mel? Just to get people a sense of safety. I mean, it's not like we're just going there and we have a bunch of guns and we're willy-nilly. We actually have to sign in. You have to sign the waivers, And then every morning we have a safety brief. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's called safety and authenticity. You get your guns checked, you get your entire uniform, your kit checked to make sure everything is authentic, everything looks right, everything is safe. It can get pretty intensive. At Rockford, we line up and everyone checks us one by one for hours.
Yeah.
And it
wow.
can take forever. Yeah.
SNA at Rockford is usually
It's intensive.
Yeah, about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, depending on what's going on.
How big is the Rockford event?
Oh,
it's like the biggest one in the Midwest, if not the country.
Wow.
Yeah, for World War II alone.
They have a really amazing World War I event too. So
yes,
and that was just a few weeks ago.
That was just a few weeks ago. And the cool thing about the World War I event is they actually have dug trenches.
Yep.
What were the wolfhounds? Do you know how they got their name? Or it sounds really cool.
That's a good question. I would have to ask my unit commander, if I'm being completely honest. I'm still a little bit new to the group, but
well, if I had to choose a group, I think I would choose one with a name like that.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, Cacti Blue was pretty cool. My uncle was 33rd ID, Cacti Blue, 68 to 69.
Bob Schuin, yeah.
And he's opened up a little bit. I mean, you'll find a lot of vets that really don't want to talk about it. I get that. There was a lot of stuff that goes on, but I've been able to talk to him for a little bit, and he was in Play Coup right away. They were a LERP unit. So, and what LERP is long range reconnaissance patrol. So it was a 3 to 5 man group that would go out and prod the enemy's front line.
Well, and he was telling me that in Vietnam, so they were basically, what was he, 1920 maybe?
19.
And so they basically, they were telling him stateside that we're defending our country against communism. And so, and they really, a lot of it was very surprising about all of the politics involved and everything. And it's a lot of young men that were sent over there to a lot of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you feel for them, because then they came back stateside and got lambasted, and that had to be difficult for sure. But yeah, I think it's really cool to learn more about women. And in Vietnam, there weren't women combatants, but there were women, or were there? I mean, there were women in the medical.
Oh yeah, not on the U.S. side, but a lot of North Vietnamese women,
right,
would definitely take up arms. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with the U.S. side, it was more of like a precursory role. They would call them REMFs, or in the rear with the gear. So usually, like the show China Beach. Was basically one of those where she was a nurse, she was a nurse in a recovery hospital.
Oh.
Or actually, no, it was a clearing station. So the wounded would be pulled off in a Huey, and then their first stop was this clearing station where they would receive life-saving medical procedures, and then passed back onto the rear. So there was not a lot of females in a combatant role. You've got correspondents, you've got nurses, you've got the donut dollies.
You've got wax as well.
Wax, yep.
What is donut dollies?
So donut dollies were kind of a Red Cross. So basically, they would be at a fire base, or what they call a fob now, but it's called a fire base, when the guys come back in from the bush. And they would usually have donuts and lemonade as they were coming back in through the wire.
Nice. And you mentioned the wax.
Yep, the Women Army Corps. So they were mostly administrative, kind of in the rear as well. Yeah.
You mentioned something. Was it you or Kim that was talking about relatives?
It was Kim.
It was Kim.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Kim couldn't end up being on with us, but she had talked about some of her relatives that were, was it her grandma, Chris, or her
I think an aunt?
An aunt,
Mhm.
yeah, who helped watch for planes. What's the correct terminology, CR?
So that would be, well, if it was British, it would be a coastal watch.
Mm-hmm.
If it was American, I forget. What comes to mind is the LA raid of, I think, 44. Coastal watch is pretty much it, or shore patrol. So on our western and eastern coasts, we actually had coast batteries with huge anti-aircraft, and they were stationed at home, but they were looking for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mel,
What's up?
we've got pretty much about 10 minutes to go.
Sure.
But one of the things I remember about this picture is it reminds me of the next morning. I think this was our first day in the field. So the first morning we were there, I woke up, and I do not sleep past 6 o'clock. So I got up in the morning, and I was like, well, I'll go get some tea. I go over to the campfire, and you remember Pavel was there, right?
Yes.
He had the machine gun on the rolling.
So awesome.
So I'm sitting there. We had a little machine gun trench built out. I look over, and he's working on the machine gun. And he looks at me and in Russian, because we tried to speak Russian as much as we could in camp. And he looks at me and he says, "Good morning," which was "Dobre utro." And I say it back. And the first thing I remember is he's got an arm in my fist, and at the end of his arm is a flask, and it is the best vodka you can ever get. Well, hey, if this is reenacting and this is how I'm gonna wake up,
that's great by me. Yeah.
Right?
I'd be like, can I get an olive with it?
But Pavel was cool because he was actually in the Russian military. I believe he was VDV, if memory serves.
Oh yeah, that might be right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Now you have to tell me about that acronym.
So VDV is the Russian paratroopers.
Oh wow!
And I'll tell you, Russian VDV are the biggest. I mean, they've got some big brass ones on them, because when they're one of the first groups that did parachuting. They didn't jump out of the plane. They jumped off the plane.
Oh my gosh.
So when the plane was on the ground, there were handrails all over the fuselage. They would step up and they would grab on.
Wow.
So they would take off on the outside of the plane.
Hi, Sue from Walla Walla. I love to say that. Walla Walla.
Hello, Sue.
Where are Walla Walla onions come
from? Do you remember? I think, was that the weekend that I was watching the reenactment. We had a couple of snipers in the amoeba camo.
Oh yeah, so cool. I actually did reenacting for a movie shoot out in South Dakota fall of this past year, and that was really cool because I got to play with all the cool toys. I got to wear all the expensive equipment. Amoeba camo isn't cheap.
No.
So that was really cool to be able to do that and run around in
that is awesome
gear that I don't have.
and amoeba camo is actually kind of cool to look at.
It
got a
really
lot
is.
of-
I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Is
not
it like paisley? What does it look like?
So okay, I'm going to be kind of weird with this description. Imagine
Okay.
if like in a cartoon when someone sneezes and it like splatters somewhere, right?
Yes.
Not going to lie, that's kind of what it looks like,
Okay.
but cooler.
Just an indescribed blob all
Yeah.
over.
Hmm.
That's hilarious. Kind of. Where do you wear it in? Urban? No.
It's like sniper camo, so like
Yep.
it could be urban, it could be like out in the field.
Okay.
Browns, greens, muted colors.
Okay.
So one more
Gotta say hi to Laura from Walla
Yeah.
Walla.
hi,
Hi,
Laura.
Laura. Or Walla Walla.
One more memory before we ended out here, and I think it was one of the first. Yeah, it was the first weekend that we met doing a reenactment. It was, I believe, the second to last year at Dakota. Or actually, it was the third year. It was my first time, and I remember because I had a brand new set of M42 paratroopers pants. Ripped them.
Oh
The
yeah.
first night,
You
I
know
was
what?
squatting
I do
down to
remember
have
that.
dinner, and they were ripped. They were unreinforced.
Like right in the seat.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Just destroyed. Just
front to
destroyed.
back, brand new. So I was like, what else do I have? And I'm like, well, I've got my khaki Class Bs. That's the only thing I have. So Sunday's battle, we're like, one more day. Sunday's battle, I'm like, I'll just throw the Class Bs on. There's a picture out of it. I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it. And what happened was in World War II, the Soviets and the US are technically allies. So we had a big fight going on where a Soviet came up and tried to take Melody out. Well, there's two of us medics there. We don't carry anything. But I had a non-firing 1911 on my side, and medics could carry that if they wanted to. So I had one, and there's a picture of a fellow medic pulling Melody to safety, and I'm sitting there with a defensive posture. That didn't.
Oh, I remember. We have a picture of that somewhere, Melody. We'll
That
have to
did
get
not
to.
go over
Oh yeah, if you
well.
could send that to me, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll have to dig
Because
those out.
the next year they were like, okay, medics cannot have a firearm,
Oh
and
man.
no Class B dress uniforms on the battlefield. I'm like, that's all I had. That's
I know, it sucks so bad.
it would have happened, you know.
Oh man. I don't know how many pictures there are of me out there being just like straight up like executed. It's you'd probably be surprised. I wouldn't be able to find them anymore, but
Yeah.
Oh, that's because you played the prisoner.
not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay.
Here's
Just the battle.
Yeah, I mean, with Dakota, there were a lot of things that would happen, and then the next year it would be, hey, don't do this.
And then
Like
something else would happen. Yeah.
the first year, there were a lot of executions.
Yeah.
And there were they had train cars there, and they had Germans there,
Yeah.
and they would haul people around the backside of the depot, and they would disappear. So a lot of that stopped going
Well,
on.
and I suppose that's trauma for anybody.
Sticky subject.
It's really
Yeah.
traumatizing.
Absolutely.
And
Mhm.
yeah.
Like with the Germans, there's no political allowed, and same thing with the Soviets. You cannot portray a commissar.
Right.
Mhm.
They want to leave the politics out of it.
Yeah.
So, well,
I
mean,
think that's good.
We've got about 4 minutes to go. Why don't you tell us one of your favorite memories?
One of my favorite memories. There's been a lot, like probably my Huey rides. I got to do war correspondent for one, and just being able to like stick your jungle boots out and like feel the wind through your vents. I remember I was like kind of sticking my head out, and the guy that was sitting next to me, he was just like a hobby parachutist. Like, it was really cool. He shoves my head and my helmet outside of outside of the outside of the side of the thing. So that was really cool, not gonna lie. Like I said, I've been there. I've gotten trench foot.
Yeah, that can't be a favorite memory.
Not gonna lie,
thinking,
it kind of was. I'm like, wow, this feels so real right now. Why exactly?
We talked about that earlier before you were on air, and I'm like, did you go to the urgent care? Or what did they say? And she's like, no, she talked about.
I think one of my favorites was we shared a couple of Balmoral straights at Duncan. And for anybody who doesn't know, a Balmoral straight is a Soviet cigarette, and I tell you,
there's no filter on it. You
the end. I can imagine it's tough.
It's man, I was
on this package in Russian. It says that this causes impotence and infertility. On the package in Russian.
And I think there was a package. I think there was a picture of a dead baby on the package too, or at least the pack I had.
Oh, I don't remember. I had one that was I had a pack that was from like the 80s or something. So they were old, and it was.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, they went.
Did you guys get sick?
I didn't.
No, actually, it was fine.
Good. Very lucky enough.
But yeah, I've had a lot of really cool experiences. I've ridden on tanks. I've gotten to shoot cool guns. I've gotten to see a lot of cool things, fly in helicopters, be in movies.
Wow. So if somebody's interested in getting started, they could always send CR a note on Facebook, and we can get them more information.
Or Google. Google's your best friend.
It's true.
But you can go ahead and drop me a message at On My Mind podcast with CR on my page, or if you know me, drop a message at CR Zarn, and I can either set you up with Melody, or I've got a couple of groups that I'm linked with.
Melody, can I ask what a future event would be around us where maybe we can come catch up for a day or a part of a day?
I actually do not have an answer for you right now as far as that. Our local like big timeline event, which was Dundas, Minnesota, is currently being put on hold.
Yep.
They're trying to find a new location for it. It sounds like.
Yeah, it would have been within the last month or so if we would have had it. Yep.
CR,
that's something that I'm trying to like figure out as well, if I'm being completely honest.
I know that must take a special place. CR, are they talking about Dakota in the future or anything like that?
Yeah, it's not gonna happen back at Dakota as much as we would like it to happen. It's not going to.
90 seconds.
So we're coming up on.
Before we sign off, can I say something? I just wanted to say that I am not an expert. I don't know everything. So if there's something that like I couldn't get like right, I'm gonna say I don't know.
Right.
I'm not the most knowledgeable, but I'm enthusiastic. So.
Well, so here's the thing, Mel. So we were only on the radio for an hour, but we can keep a live stream going for a little bit longer if we want. So that's up to you. But we're coming up on the end of the radio spot. But we can keep going on the StreamYard for a little while if you want to.
Yeah, I have a few more minutes.
Okay. So, trying to think. I hate it when my train of thought disappears.
Oh, I've been so tired all day. I totally get it.
I remember one of the times, because you and I have been friends for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was with Fox Company of the 101st Airborne when you were with the Soviet group. And I remember we were done this one time. And my group and I are walking into the Sutler barn. And we saw each other from a mile off. And I'm like, Mel! And we start running and we have a hug. And we get done. And I go back to my guys and they're like, who the hell is that? And how the hell do you know her?
It gave him some good status, I'm sure.
But honestly, it's just a big brother, little sister relationship.
It's sweet. It's always
Yeah.
been sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, when I saw everyone reenacting out at Dakota, it just seemed like everyone was in a really great team or group, and that people were respectful but enjoying it at the same time.
Oh, people get close.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not a big hobby. I mean, the people, especially like your team, like your divisions, get close.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wouldn't be one to go like, I want to go like lay in a foxhole half of the weekend.
Been there, done that. I wouldn't suggest it.
It's not as bad as you think.
If you
It
forget
gets probably worse.
if you forget to dig the grenade sump, yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did that. We were eating our knees all night, so I wouldn't suggest it. But the nice thing is you got to meet a lot of vets when we were
Oh
doing
yeah.
this.
Hmm.
And those are some of the friendships that I will always cherish. Unfortunately, we've lost pretty much every World War II vet that I know. Especially starting when I started in paratrooper. We were in the 82nd group, and we got to know Lieutenant Colonel James Magellas, who was
Oh,
the
interesting.
highest ranking officer in the 82nd. And we lost him probably 3-4 years ago. He made it to his 100th birthday and he passed away.
Wow.
And we actually would go out to events and be his boys. And there was Harold Roy, which we knew. He passed a couple years ago. I think the other guy, Ernie Lampson, and I hold Ernie Lampson in my heart because he pinned my wings on me. He was
That's really cool.
and I got blood pinned. If people don't know what blood pinning is, it's hazing now. You can't do it now, but they would take the brass plates off the back of the wings, so you just had the two prongs.
Ouch.
And they would set it where they go, and then every guy in your group would line up, and one by one they'd walk up and they'd thump your chest.
Ooh.
And that was kind of like a badge of courage, but
Or a badge of suffering, either way.
right.
Yeah.
So Melody, what's your experience with the veterans?
I'm really lucky that I do Vietnam. Actually, I've like I said, our Dayton, Ohio event is on the grounds of a VA hospital, so we get to talk to a lot of people, meet a lot of people.
Wow.
We had at our Fort Harrison event a couple of weeks ago, we had a talk by a veteran that was in I don't remember what division he was in, but that was really, really interesting to see like an officer's perspective kind of on how things were run. I've had veterans come up to me crying after like helicopter landings. He said,
Oh, yeah.
he says like, wow, this really brings me back, but thank you so much for doing it. So being able to have that experience with Vietnam reenacting being so young is really, really special. Really lucky to do it.
Why don't we touch on that a little bit? I know with, like you said, Vietnam reenacting is being young. Well, here's another thing. Melody and I are part of a Desert Storm group. Yes, I said Desert Storm, 1990. I have heard it's a mixed bag. Some guys like it, some guys don't.
I'm still so new to the group. Have you done any events? Oh no, our first event is going to be the one next year, right?
Right. Yeah, we haven't gotten together yet. We're still trying. I'm still trying to look up gear. I've got a couple of pieces. I've got some berets. So we're not only are we Royal Horse Artillery, but they were actually part of the UN peacekeeping. So I've got the blue beret with the flash, and then I've got my impression is Royal Medical Corps. So I've got a black beret with the Royal Medical Corps flash. Kim is commanding officer, major. Corinne Ryerson. So she and I are choosing to do first person impressions. These aren't people that actually served in the first RHA, but we're kind of bringing them up. So she is Major Corinne Ryerson. I'm Captain Alex Tarrant of the Royal Medical Corps. So I've got a British DPM desert jacket and the woodland jacket, and then I'm working on the other pieces.
And CR, you got into this, and I know that. Can I talk a little bit about how you got into it? Are you comfortable with me?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
So, for those of you that don't know, I'm CR's mom, Mama Bear, they call me. And CR got into this. He kept trying to get into the armed forces, and he should have been born on the 4th of July, but he was born on the 3rd of July. But he's the most patriotic person I have ever known.
I didn't know that about you, Chris.
Oh yeah.
He
by that much.
He couldn't get in because there's some neurodiversity there, a septo-optic dysplasia, which impacts vision as well. And so he kept going back and appealing it, and is to the point where he got his record sent to the Surgeon General.
Yep.
And then they denied him, and he was so deflated. And Dan and I said, his dad, well, go tell the story. Go tell the stories, And so he did. He'd go out to schools in World War II uniform and, stuff like that. So we're very proud of his reenacting. And I think all the people that do it are so respectful, and they're telling the story, they're living history, things that, I would never see unless they've done it. Like I said, my goodness, I was standing 25 feet from was it a Panzer tank?
A Sherman.
Sherman. How could I get that confused? But it just blew my mind. It was rolling down the road in front of me.
Or as they nicknamed him, a rolling Ronson.
Yeah. So that's how CR got into it. Did you do Civil War first? I think
I did Civil War for 10 years. I was with 5th Minnesota Company C for 10 years, and then I knew Travis because he was 1st Minnesota. I was talking to him one time, and I'm like, man, I'm getting, this is slow paced. I was getting burnt out. He's like, hey, if you think this is slow paced, he goes, come up to my land. I've got, we do 1st SS. I'll tell you that first tactical, I go in, he puts me in a loading uniform. He gives me a Mauser, a K98. And I think he gave me 50 rounds. He goes, 50 rounds. It'll hold you for the weekend. I was through them rounds in probably, I don't know, half hour. Came back and I'm like, hey, can I have some more? He goes,
that's your dad laughing in the background.
He goes, that was a weekend's loadout worth, but here, I'll give you the ones that didn't, work out so well. So, but that's the difference going from a muzzle loader where you're making 3 well-placed shots in a minute to as fast as you can work the bolt.
Yeah. Was that like a big adjustment for you?
Yeah, it was. It was interesting. I liked it though. So, well, I think we've covered it pretty well. I think it would be fun to have you back on again sometime. We could figure out another topic, but I think it would really be great to have you back on. I appreciate you coming on, and we haven't talked for, I don't know, what, 3-4 years?
Yeah, text me.
Well, I thank you so much, Melody. This is my favorite picture ever. I think it's classic.
Oh yeah.
So
it's been an honor to have you on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, thank you for coming on, Mel.
Yeah.
Adrian, if you want to hang on for a minute or two, we can recap and tell our visitors what we're doing next.
Coming up next.
So, yep. So, all right. Well, thank you, Melody.
Yes.
Bye, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Bye. All right, folks. So that was Melody Ray, a good friend of mine. Consider her a sister in arms. So let's go ahead, and for next week is going to be the week of May 12th.
Are we jumping back into paranormal?
We are actually jumping into paranormal, and we actually do have a 2-for-1 next week. There is a place down in Mechanicsville, Georgia, or Mechanicsville, Virginia. Sorry, Ryan, you're probably going to yell at me for that, but Mechanicsville, Virginia, and it's called the Cabin on 360. If you want some good YouTube watching, go ahead and Google or put that in YouTube. You could even Google that Cabin on 360. So Friday night, we're going to have Dennis, who watches over the property. And he actually has the ability to remote view. So I'll be talking to him on Friday. And unfortunately, next Friday, Adrian, you're not going to be able to join me. Why don't you tell our listeners what's going on?
Well, we have, so I teach the medical coding program at Dakota County Technical College, and Friday night is our graduation. So I'll be dressed up in my robe and wishing my graduates the best as they walk across the stage. But I'm going to be back the next night because we have, as CR said, a 2-for, right? We have more paranormal Saturday night.
So Saturday night, we have Ryan from Freaking Awesome Paranormal Show on.
We have Awesome Ryan from Freaking Awesome.
Yes, exactly. So he actually is part of the family who owns Cabin on 360. So we're going to be talking to him about, maybe how his family came upon the property and what are the accounts of what's happening. There was trauma on the land, both in the 1860s and as recently as 1970s, and that'll play part into what's going on. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and tune in. Both nights will be 7 p.m. CST. Friday night I'll be flying solo, and then Adrian will be back on Saturday night. So we'll have 2 nights of the paranormal, and then the week after that we're going to be talking to Tony Price, who was a Navy veteran in the 80s, and then he also does a lot of work with the Gold Star Foundation. And basically what a Gold Star Foundation is they take care of the families of our fallen heroes, fallen active service members. He does a lot of Gold Star rides with motorcycles.
They ride all over the country, don't they?
Yeah, all over the country.
It's really nice.
They go to funerals. They go to repatriations. So POWMIA, if they find a vet from Vietnam and they repatriate his remains, they'll meet that plane on U.S. soil and they'll give them a ride home.
That's going to be a really interesting show.
That will be a great show. So, well, I hope everybody loved tonight's show. We're actually 14 minutes past normal time end, but I thought we'd keep it going. Melody's a great friend, and it was good to talk to her. And it was good to talk to you tonight, Karen. I don't know why I keep calling Karen, but
I go by either, it depends on what state I'm in. I have to do my alias, but my first name is Karen. But when I moved here in 1990, I started going by my middle name because my sister-in-law was also Karen Zarn, and we lived in very small Lakeville in 1990. And I mean, the first time I went into the bank, they're like, "You're not Karen Zarn. I went to school with her." Yeah, I married her brother. I have the same first name, show, here's my ID, but it wasn't just that. They got our medical records mixed up. Back in the Jurassic period, they didn't ask you 4 times for your date of birth at the medical clinic. So
No
they
HIPAA whatsoever.
got messed up. So I just said, I'm going by my middle name.
All right. Well, it was a great show. I think we had a fun time doing it. It went by too quick.
Yeah, learning a lot.
We'll have to have Kim on by herself some night and just rehash it. Kim, if you're listening, I'm sorry, technical difficulties, but we'll have you on another night and a show just for you, and we'll get some pictures up of what you've done and tell our listeners about your experience as a reenactor. But all right, well, we'll go ahead and end it here, and tune in next Friday night. I will be flying solo, and we will see Adrian on next Saturday night. All right, everybody have a blessed week.
See you then.